Picture this for a second. You worked 40 years for one simple dream. A little place in the Florida sun, palm trees outside the window, the ocean a short drive away, and finally, the time to enjoy all of it. For millions of Americans, that dream came true. But right now, all across the Sunshine State, something strange is happening. The moving trucks are pointed the other way. In 2025, almost 46,000 retirees moved into Florida, but nearly 45,000 packed up and left. That's a net gain of just over 800 people, in a state that used to welcome retirees by the hundreds of thousands. The tide, quietly, has turned. And over the next half hour, I'm going to walk you through 12 Florida towns that retirees are fleeing in 2026, and more importantly, exactly why. Some of these you'll see coming, but number three is going to genuinely shock you. Because for years it was crowned one of the very best places to retire in all of America. And today, retirees can't seem to pack up fast enough. We'll get there, just stay with me. Because here's the thing, whether you're still dreaming of Florida or you already own a place down here, what I'm about to show you could save you a small fortune and a whole lot of heartbreak. Now, before we start the countdown, you need to understand the three forces pushing good people out, because it's almost never just one thing. The first force is insurance. This is the big one. The average Florida homeowner is now paying somewhere between $8,000 and $14,000 a year just to insure their home. That's 3 to 4 times the national average. Let that sink in. Studies show the typical Florida retiree now spends around a third of their entire income just on home insurance. A third. On a fixed income, that isn't a nuisance. That's a slow-motion eviction notice. The second force is the storms. Ian, Helene, Milton. One brutal season after another. And it's not only the damage, it's what the damage does to your premiums, your flood maps, and your peace of mind afterward. When you're 75 years old, you do not want to be tearing drywall out of your living room for the third time. And the third force is the quiet one that catches people completely off guard: the condominium laws. After the tragedy in Surfside, Florida finally forced aging condo buildings to inspect their structures and fully fund their repair reserves. Necessary? Absolutely. But for tens of thousands of retirees living in older beachfront condos, the bill for decades of postponed maintenance all came due at once, landing as special assessments of $20,000, $50,000, even $100,000. Money most retirees simply do not have lying around. Insurance, storms, and the condo bills. Keep those three in your mind as we go, because you're going to see them again and again. All right, let's start the countdown. Orlando. Now I know what you're thinking. Orlando? The theme parks, the sunshine, the endless things to do? For a long time, it made a lot of sense. It's inland, so you're further from the worst of the hurricanes, and the homes were cheaper than the coast. That was the pitch, and it worked. But that inland safety net has frayed. Insurance rates have climbed here too, because a Florida policy is a Florida policy, hurricane or not. And the cost of everyday life has crept up fast. Retirees tell the same story again and again. The traffic keeps getting worse, the crowds keep getting bigger, and the quiet, affordable retirement they pictured got swallowed up by a city that never stops growing or building. When you're on a fixed income and the tourist town around you keeps getting more expensive and more crowded, convenience stops being enough. And so, slowly, many are choosing to leave. That's why Orlando lands at number 12. Number 11. Jacksonville. Jacksonville had a genuinely appealing formula. It's Florida's biggest city by land area, way up in the northeast corner, with lower home prices than South Florida and a big, sprawling, easygoing feel. On paper, it was a value play. Florida sunshine without the Miami price tag. But here's what the census data is now showing. Jacksonville is one of the Florida cities that's losing residents faster than it can replace them. And when you dig into why, two things come up over and over. The first is water. Large parts of the city sit low and flat along the St. Johns River and the coast, and flooding has become a recurring, expensive headache, which of course feeds right back into those insurance bills. The second is that the affordability edge is fading. As prices rose across the whole state, Jacksonville's discount shrank. And for a lot of retirees, the math simply stopped working. And that's the pattern you're going to notice tonight. It is rarely a single disaster that drives people out. It's the steady, grinding accumulation. A little more for insurance, a little more for taxes, a little more for groceries, and one more anxious hurricane season. Until one morning, a retiree looks at their bank statement, looks at their spouse, and quietly says, "You know what? I think it's time to go." Jacksonville, number 11. But hold on, because the further up this list we climb, the more painful the goodbyes become. And remember, we are still building toward number 3, the town that will genuinely surprise you. Let's keep going. Number 10. Tampa. Tampa spent years as one of Florida's great success stories. A booming, energetic city on the bay, a real downtown, good hospitals, waterfront neighborhoods, a place that felt like it had everything a retiree could want, with a big city pulse. Then came 2024 and back-to-back blows. Hurricane Helene and then Hurricane Milton, just weeks apart. For a bay that had gone decades without a truly direct hit, it was a brutal wake-up call. Storm surge pushed into neighborhoods people thought were safe. And in the aftermath, a hard question settled over the whole region. Is all this beauty worth living with that kind of risk? At this age? At these prices? For a growing number of retirees, the answer became no. Tampa still shows up near the top of the state's arrival lists. Plenty of people are still moving in, but it's now also near the top for departures. People come chasing the dream, get one real taste of a Gulf hurricane season and the insurance bill that follows, and quietly decide it isn't for them. That churn is why Tampa sits at number 10. Number 9. Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda. Drive down the Gulf Coast, south of Sarasota, and you reach Charlotte Harbor, Port Charlotte, and the pretty little city of Punta Gorda. For decades, this was a beloved, affordable, laid-back stretch of water for retirees. Boaters loved it. Fixed incomes could handle it. It was, for a long time, a genuinely smart place to land. But this is Hurricane Alley in the most literal sense. Charlotte County took a devastating hit from Hurricane Charlie back in 2004, and then, in 2022, Hurricane Ian came ashore just to the south and raked right across this region. Two historic storms in a single generation. And when you've rebuilt your home and your nerves twice, and the insurance company is now quoting you a number that rivals your mortgage, something inside you starts to let go. The people who move here still love that harbor, but more and more of the retirees who lived through those storms are choosing calm over coastline. They're trading the water view for a place where the wind doesn't keep them up at night. Number 9, and I want you to hold that idea, calm over coastline, because it's about to become the whole story. We are getting very close to number 3 now. But first, two towns where the problem isn't only the storms, it's the paperwork. Number 8, Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is postcard Florida. The canals, the yachts, the beautiful beach, that easy, glamorous coastal life. And for the retiree who wanted a condo by the water, lock the door, travel whenever you like, no lawn to mow, it was close to perfect. But this is where that quiet third force, the condo law, hits hardest. Fort Lauderdale and the surrounding Broward County are full of older, high-rise condo buildings right on the water. And as of the start of 2025, those buildings can no longer kick the can down the road. They're required to fully fund their repair reserves. No more voting to skip it. For a lot of long-time owners, that meant monthly fees jumping overnight, plus special assessments landing in the mailbox for tens of thousands of dollars to fix seawalls, elevators, and crumbling concrete. Now add saltwater flooding. Fort Lauderdale saw historic, record-breaking rainfall that put whole neighborhoods underwater, and rising insurance on top. For a retiree who bought that condo precisely because it was supposed to be simple and worry-free, it turned into the opposite. Many are selling into a crowded market and heading somewhere the mailbox doesn't come with surprises. Number 8. Number 7. Fort Myers Beach. This one genuinely hurts, because Fort Myers Beach was a specific kind of Florida magic. Not flashy, not exclusive, just a low-key, sandy, friendly little beach town where an ordinary retiree on an ordinary budget could actually live right by the Gulf. That was the dream in its purest form. Then in September 2022, Hurricane Ian made landfall almost directly on top of it. The little town was, in large parts, simply erased. And here's the heartbreak of what came after. As the island slowly rebuilt, it didn't come back as it was. The modest old cottages that regular people could afford were torn down, and in their place rose bigger, higher, far more expensive homes built to the newest codes. The island is coming back, but it's coming back for the wealthy. So the very retirees who made that town what it was, the ones who could just barely afford paradise, have largely been priced right off their own island. It's not only the storm that pushed them out, it's everything the storm set in motion. Fort Myers Beach, number 7. Okay, take a breath, because now we move into the top 6, the places where the exodus is the loudest, and number 3 is now just 2 towns away. Let's keep climbing. Number 6, Miami Beach. Miami Beach barely needs an introduction. The Art Deco, the ocean, the energy, the glamour. And for decades, tucked behind that glitz, there were thousands of older, more modest condos where regular retirees quietly lived out a sunny, walkable, oceanside life. That's the part the postcards never showed. That quiet life is now under enormous pressure from every direction at once. The cost of simply existing here has soared. Insurance on an oceanfront building is punishing. The condo reserve law is squeezing exactly these older buildings the hardest. And then there's the water itself. Miami Beach now floods on sunny days, at high tide, with no storm in sight. What locals call king tide flooding. When the sea starts coming up through the storm drains on a clear afternoon, even the most devoted resident starts to wonder about the next 20 years. For a retiree on a fixed income, it becomes untenable. The dollars stop working and the water keeps rising. And so, one by one, they cash out and move on. Number 6. Number 5. Key West. Ah, Key West. The end of the road. That one-of-a-kind, sun-soaked, anything-goes island at the very tip of Florida. So many people dreamed of retiring here. And I'll be honest with you, as a place, it's still magic. But as a place to actually live on a fixed income, the numbers have become almost unbelievable. Living costs in Key West run more than 40% above the national average. And the insurance, this is the one that stops people cold. Because of the extreme hurricane exposure way out on that exposed little island, homeowners here have reported insurance quotes in the range of $25,000 a year. Not the mortgage, just the insurance. Wind and flood coverage alone can run past $15,000. The result is heartbreaking and a little surreal. Families that have owned homes on that island for generations, 100 years in some cases, are selling and walking away simply because the taxes and the insurance have become impossible to carry. If the people whose grandparents built the place can't afford to stay, what chance does a new retiree have? Key West, number 5. And now, after everything you've heard about insurance and storms and prices, we arrive at the one that breaks the pattern, the one nobody expects. Number 4 first, and then the shock. Number 4, Naples. For years, Naples wore a crown. It was the retirement capital of Florida. The polished, upscale Gulf Coast city with the manicured streets, the world-class golf, the white sand beaches, and the sense that this was the place you moved when you'd truly made it. And for the wealthy, it still is. But watch what's happening underneath. The median home price in Naples now sits somewhere around $600,000 to $700,000, with the overall cost of living running well above the national average. Layer on the same brutal coastal insurance as everywhere else on this list, and remember, Naples took serious damage from Hurricane Ian too, and something quietly shifts. Naples stops being a place a comfortable upper-middle-class retiree can move to. It becomes a place only the genuinely rich can afford to stay. So the merely well-off retirees, the ones who did everything right, saved carefully, planned well, are getting priced out of the so-called retirement capital itself and moving inland or out of state for a fraction of the cost. When even Naples starts pushing retirees out, you know the whole equation has changed. And that brings us, finally, to number 3, the one I promised would genuinely shock you: Sarasota. Now, to understand why this is so stunning, you have to understand what Sarasota was. This wasn't just a nice place to retire. This was, by the experts' own scoring, one of the best places to retire in the entire country. U.S. News and World Report, the people who rank these things, placed Sarasota at number 4 on their national list of the best places to retire in America. Number 4 in the whole country. The beaches, the arts, the culture, the hospitals. For years, it was held up as the gold standard of the Florida retirement dream. And then, it fell off a cliff. In the very next edition of that same national ranking, Sarasota didn't just slip a few spots. It dropped out of the top 250 cities altogether. Gone. Vanished from the list entirely. The former poster child of American retirement, erased from the map of best places to retire in a single year. So what on earth happened? The same quiet arithmetic you've heard all night, hitting critically hard. Insurance costs exploded. Home prices ran far ahead of what ordinary retirees could manage. And storm anxiety along that stretch of coast climbed with every season. And here's the detail that tells the whole story. In that very same county, a quiet, more affordable inland town called Northport, a place most people have never even heard of, came climbing up the national list, landing well inside the rankings, while glamorous Sarasota fell off entirely. Read that again slowly, because it's the lesson of this entire video. Retirees didn't stop wanting Florida. They stopped being able to afford the coast, and so they moved a few miles inland to the quiet town nobody talks about and left the famous one behind. In 2026, it turns out, it isn't the prestigious address that wins. It's the one you can actually afford to live in. Sarasota, number 3, and honestly, the most telling story on this list. Now, if that shook you, wait until you see the 2 towns above it, where retirees aren't just trickling out. They're leaving in numbers you can measure from space. Number 2, St. Petersburg. St. Pete was beloved, and I mean genuinely beloved. The sparkling waterfront, the sunshine that gave it its nickname, the walkable downtown, the museums, the pier. For a certain kind of retiree, it was just about ideal. Sunny, cultured, and right on the bay. But now we get to a number that is almost hard to believe. The county that St. Petersburg sits in, Pinellas County, lost roughly 12,000 residents in a single year between 2024 and 2025. And here's the part that stops you cold. Out of every county in the entire United States, that was the second largest population drop in the whole country. The only place in America that lost more people was Los Angeles. Think about that. This beautiful, sunny slice of the Florida dream is now hemorrhaging residents at a rate matched by almost nowhere else in the nation. Why? Because it caught everything at once. Hurricanes Helene and Milton in 2024 hit the region hard, flooding neighborhoods that thought they were safe. And right behind the water came the same wall of costs: insurance, taxes, prices that people simply could not climb. When your county leads the entire country in people leaving, second only to LA, that's not a trend anymore. That's an exodus. St. Petersburg, number 2. Number 1. And number 1, Cape Coral. If any place captures this whole heartbreaking story in a single town, it's this one. Because Cape Coral was the dream, the affordable version of the dream. All those canals, all that waterfront, at prices working-class retirees from the North and Midwest could genuinely afford. This was where you went when you wanted the Florida water life without the Naples price tag. For decades, it worked beautifully. Then reality arrived. Cape Coral, it turns out, has more properties at risk of flooding than any other city in the entire state of Florida. Any other city. Then Hurricane Ian tore through in 2022, and then came the gut punch that pushed it to number 1. A federal decision over how the city rebuilt is set to raise flood insurance rates here by 25%, a hike landing on people who are already drowning in costs. The result? At one point, across Cape Coral and neighboring Fort Myers, something like 12,000 homes sat on the market at the same time. 12,000 families, give or take, all trying to get out at once. The affordable dream became the single most exposed, most expensive to insure place on this entire list. And that is why Cape Coral is number 1. So, those are the 12. But if all these people are leaving, where on earth are they going? Because that answer is actually full of hope. Stay with me for 2 more minutes. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. All these retirees leaving Florida, the vast majority are not giving up on the warm weather dream at all. They're just getting smarter about where they chase it. There's a name for what's happening. They call it the halfback. People who once moved all the way from the north down to Florida are now moving halfway back up, settling in the warm, welcoming, and dramatically more affordable states just to the north. We're talking about the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, and out west, Texas. Same sunshine and mild winters, same friendly small towns, but a fraction of the insurance, a fraction of the home price, and a whole lot less hurricane anxiety. In fact, when you look at where retirement age Americans are actually gaining ground, states like South Carolina, Texas, and North Carolina are quietly winning the very people Florida is losing. And some aren't even leaving Florida. They're just stepping back from the coast. That's the lesson of Sarasota and Little Northport. Move 20 miles inland, and the same sunshine suddenly comes at half the price and a fraction of the risk. So if you take one thing from all of this, let it be this. The dream isn't dead. A warm, peaceful, affordable retirement is absolutely still out there. It is just quietly moved off the most expensive, most exposed coastline and toward the calmer, kinder, more sensible towns a little further from the water. And the people who see that early, the people willing to look past the famous names on the postcard, are the ones who get to actually relax and enjoy the years they worked so hard for. Now, because so many of you have asked, I've put together a simple, honest relocation guide that lays this out town by town. The real cost of living, the insurance picture, the tax situation, and the safest, most affordable Sunbelt towns retirees are moving to right now across Florida and the states around it. It's the guide I wish every retiree had before they signed anything. You'll find it linked down in the description below. And if this opened your eyes even a little, if it saved you from one expensive mistake, do me a small favor. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because in an upcoming episode, I'm going to show you the other side of this map. The 10 Sunbelt towns where retirees are actually thriving in 2026. Affordable, safe, sunny, and welcoming. The places people are running to instead of from. I genuinely can't wait to show you those. Until then, take care of yourself, protect that hard-earned nest egg, and remember, the best place to retire isn't always the most famous one. Sometimes it's the quiet little town right next door. I'll see you in the next one.